Hey, good evening, Ant Farm. Welcome to another Sunday Night Thirst. I hope you guys have had a wonderful 4th of July weekend thus far. Right off the bat, I want to give a shout out to my grandmother. Today, July 5th, is her birthday. So happy birthday, Granny. I hope you had a great day, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get to our announcements this week. Hey, Ant Farm, these are our announcements this week. Right off the bat, if you've not downloaded the Antioch Student Ministry app, go ahead and download it. It is a free app for you to download. It is available on both the Google Android phones and the Apple iOS phones, okay? And of course, you can also download it for your tablet as well. Parents, this is a good way for you to stay connected to see what we are talking about at Sunday Night Thirst, digitally speaking. Also, a bit of sad news here. The last of our summer fun events for July got canceled. Obviously, Braves game, Whitewater's been canceled. Our service project that we're going to do with the Atlanta Foster Support, that has now been canceled as well. We're going to try to make up as many of these things as we can once restrictions start easing up, and it is definitely safe for us all to be out together again with no limitations on social distancing and stuff like that. But until that day happens, hey, unfortunately, we're in these uncharted waters still. So I have no idea when we'll be able to resume normal activities, but brighter days are ahead, okay? We are one day closer to being all together, doing everything as normal. So that's some good news there. All right, so it's time for worship. But before we get into it, it's going to look pretty similar. And that's because for the month of July, for the most part, we're actually going to let the band take off because of vacations and camps and whatnot happening. So we're still going to have worship, but we're just going to call this our greatest hits. So let's get our worship on.
love made a way to let mercy go. When death was arrested and my life began. Ash was redeemed, only beauty remained, and my orphan heart was given again. My mourning grew quiet, my feet rose to dance. When death was arrested, my life began. Your grace is so free, washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. Chains, I'm a prisoner. Shame was arrested. It's my debt, all we did when death was arrested, my life our Savior displayed on a criminal's cross, and darkness rejoices though heaven had lost. But then Jesus rose, my freedom in death was arrested, my life washes over me. You have made it new, now life begins with you. Endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you.
So, when you don't know how to do something, how to fix something, or how something works, what do? Ask a teacher? Ask your parents? Ask your friends? Ask someone you really know and trust? No! You go to the internet and ask some randos. But I'm not talking about creeps here, I hope. No, I mean the people of the internet! You know, those people who make how-to videos. Because chances are, if you're trying to figure out something, someone on the internet has already figured it out for you. Things like, how do I unsend a text? No. How do I do a winged eyeliner? How do I get rid of the zit by Friday night? How do I get out of gym class? How do I screen cap Snapchat without getting caught? They'll never know. But then there are things in life that don't have an easy fix, that don't have a simple solution, that don't have a how-to video. Things like what to do when you have problems with family, or when it seems like you have no control in your life, or what to do when someone has done something to you. I mean, clearly, they gotta go. The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
A few years ago, Sugarburger and I was at the grocery store just picking up some few things. It wasn't one of those marathon trips where we load up on everything in the house. You know, those kind of trips where we stock up on like the world's greatest things to snack on or to get through a week or two of groceries. We weren't loading up on the wings or the chips and dip and man, those wonderful Swiss cake rolls that I love so much that I never really get to eat. Alex, Chloe, Christina, do you guys know anything about that? If you do, let me know. Now, for this trip, it was just one of those things to pick up just a few essential items. About halfway through the trip, we noticed we're on this empty aisle and there's nobody on this aisle. We noticed a $100 bill just lying there on the ground. We were the only ones in this aisle and we had been there for a few minutes. So we started scanning the aisle, we're looking back and forth and we're seeing if there's anybody else there. And we realized we've been here for a few minutes and nobody else has been here. Now, feel free to judge me all you want, but I swear to you, these are some of the legitimate thoughts that were running through my head at this very moment. The first thought was this: man, just ignore it and leave it. Whoever dropped it, they're gonna come back to look for it. And then there's the second thought. Man, forget the first thought. Just take it. Man, God gave you a gift of $100 bills from heaven above. And then there was this next thought, which was you need to take it up to the front, give it to a manager, because surely someone will come back and look for it. And then there's me. Well, better me than somebody else, man. It's an empty aisle. It's not like someone dropped it by the register. If it was really that big of a deal to them, man, they wouldn't have dropped it to begin with. And if I take it to customer service and the employee will probably just keep it, and is anybody really gonna wanna give cash back to somebody else? Basically, my brain was just having an argument with itself. Plus, man, we were in a hurry. We were just one of those things where we're just in a rush. And with all these options, the question blaring through my mind was, what should I actually do? Now, some of you would confidently say, take it to the manager, that's the right thing. Others would say, take the money, this is not a moral issue, finders keepers. And then some of you, like the constant skeptics, you're trying to figure out in your mind if this is some late night prank show, like in Practical Jokers, where they're filming you and then they're gonna out you for being selfish. Here's the thing I'm getting at. Knowing what to do isn't simple in that moment. And that's what we're talking about in this series, what to do when you don't know what to do. Now tonight we're gonna look at that dilemma of what to do when we don't know what is right and we don't know what is wrong. It'd be nice if doing the right thing was always clear and obvious and in your face. But we all know that isn't always the case. Sometimes the right thing is not obvious at all. If you're dating someone, but you're also texting someone, like texting them a lot, and you're like, well, I'm not really cheating on anyone. We're just texting at 2 a.m. What? No, that's wrong. All right? You see what I'm getting at? And then you have this situation where the right thing isn't always obvious. It's like your teammate, all right? Is always griping and complaining about how big of a jerk the coach is and how your teammate got benched for no particular reason. But you know, man, they really need to work on their layup game. Is it wrong to tell them? Yeah, it's gonna hurt them for sure. But is it wrong not to tell them if fixing this one thing would get them more playing time in the game? And then you have this other situation that, man, the right thing's not always obvious. Let's say you have a friend who's doing something that really bothers you, and you don't know if you should talk to them about it or not. You're really wondering, if I confront them, am I just going to look like a jerk? Is this my issue or is it their issue? I should just get over it. What even is the right thing in these situations? Sometimes the right things, it's going to cost us something. Once we decided to return the $100 bill to the customer service desk, I knew it was going to cost me. Specifically, it did cost me $100. So easy come, easy go. On top of that, I had to spend some time going from the back of the store back to the front of the store and having this really weird conversation for the customer service rep who was just having a hard time while I'm trying to turn in $100. Maybe you know the right thing is to be honest with your parents, but if you're honest with them, you know you're probably going to lose your phone, maybe for the rest of your life. All right, not that bad, but that's what goes through your mind. Then you have, well, maybe you should know the right thing isn't to be in that relationship anymore, but if you break up, then you're going to be single and alone. Maybe you know the right thing isn't to let somebody else cheat off of your test, but if you say no, then you somehow feel like a loser and it's going to cost you socially. Maybe you know the right thing to do is to decline when somebody offers you a drink. But it seems like everybody's drinking, they're all having fun. Saying no will cost you a good time and maybe even a good story to tell come Monday. You see what I'm getting at? Sometimes what's right feels very complicated. And even when we do know what's right, sometimes it's difficult to actually do the right thing. So with that in mind, let's pick back up with Joseph. For the past couple weeks, we've talked about how this guy is one of the most famous people in the early history of the Bible, and his story is completely wild, like sold into slavery by your own brothers, kind of wild. And what we're going to look at tonight, man, could be a game changer for us all. It's going to help us know what to do when we don't know what to do. Now, when we left off last week with Joseph, Joseph had just been sold into slavery by his brothers. And we're going to pick up this week with what happened afterwards, like the very next thing. We're told that Joseph was given work to do in the house of an officer of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh was like this king and emperor and president, all rolled into one. And whatever Pharaoh said, that's what happened, period. So you can imagine working for one of Pharaoh's most important officials was kind of stressful. Now, depending on the situation, it could either go really well or it could be really bad. And there's no telling what situation Joseph was going to walk into. But like we mentioned last week, the author was quick to point out that God was with Joseph. And he had favor with the official whose name was Potiphar. That means that Potiphar was a fan of Joseph. So let's check out what happens next in this story. It comes from Genesis chapter 39. And we're going to start with verse 2 and go through verse 6. And this is what it says. The Lord was with Joseph, so he prospered. And he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of the household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was put on everything that Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything that he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except for the food that he ate. So things weren't so bad for Joseph because Potiphar trusted him. And things weren't bad for Potiphar either because Joseph was in charge and he was thriving. But then things took a weird turn in verse 6 and 7. This is what it says. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." Wow. I told you, this is going in a weird direction here. So 2 things that we just learned. Apparently, Joseph wasn't a bad-looking guy. And 2, his boss's wife noticed. Now, this is where things really get complicated, because Joseph was a servant and he was required to obey not only Potiphar, but also Potiphar's wife. And if he refused her commands, there was nothing holding her back from punishing Joseph. He could be kicked out of the household, which was a better place than others. It could even cost him his life. But if he did what she asked, then that would create a whole other set of problems. After all, man, she's married to his boss. Both options came with problems. So it wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't clear. So what did Joseph do when he didn't know what to do? Listen to what happens next in verses 8, 9, and 10. This is what it says. But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. So basically, out of respect for Potiphar, and out of even bigger respect for God, Joseph simply did the next right thing. Joseph didn't make a decision based on how things might turn out for him, like losing his job or even his life. He made a decision based on what was right. And what was right in that moment was turning down Potiphar's wife. It was complicated, it was challenging, but it was the right thing to do. It wasn't exactly like his life was perfect as a result of making the right choice. In fact, things actually got worse. Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph of rape. Potiphar believed his wife and had Joseph thrown into prison. Not exactly the happy ending that you were hoping for, especially when you know you did the right thing. But Joseph didn't make his decision based on what it might mean for him. He did what was right with God and trusted God with the outcome. The outcome for Joseph in this situation, it certainly wasn't great. But there's a word I want you to know that completely changes everything when it comes to doing what is right. And that word is integrity. Maybe you've heard that word before. Integrity simply means being the kind of person who does what's right, regardless of the outcome and regardless of who is around. Sometimes doing the right thing will get you, man, it's going to get you the applause. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes doing the right thing will cost you something. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes doing the right thing will make you look really good, and sometimes it'll make you look really stupid. You see, we don't get to decide how things are going to turn out, but we get to decide what kind of person we want to be. And being a person of integrity will lead to a life with less regrets, more respect, and a better idea of what to do in every situation. Chances are we're never going to find ourselves in the same kind of situation that Joseph was in, but we will find ourselves in all kinds of situations where we'll have to decide what to do without knowing how it's going to play out. It could go better than we thought, or it can certainly go worse. But then we make our decisions with integrity. When we make our decision with integrity based on what is right, then we are living lives that we can be proud of. So here's one thing that we can remember. When you don't know what to do, then do the next right thing. So try this. 1, think of a situation where you know the right thing to do, but you're afraid to do it. What are you afraid of? If fear wasn't a factor, what would you do? The second thing is this. Determine what kind of person you want to be. I'm not talking about 5 years from now. What kind of person do you want to be like this week, today, tomorrow? What do you need today that will set you up to be the kind of person who respects themselves and can be proud of their decisions, not because they're easy, but because they're right? Here's the deal. Most of us know the right thing to do in most situations, but fear keeps us from acting how we know we should. More than that, fear and inaction keeps us from becoming who we want to be right now. That's why we're learning to live with integrity, living in a way on the outside that matches what we think and believe on the inside is the most direct route to being who we want to be. But that doesn't always make it easy when you don't know what to do. So the next 2 steps were created with you, taking the final step to do what you need to do in mind. 1, tell somebody the next thing you're going to do. And 2, invite them to pray for you and ask you this week if you actually did it. That's how we should live our lives of integrity, knowing the next right thing and then doing the next right thing and inviting someone else to come alongside us. Doing the next right thing doesn't have to be a lonely venture. Invite someone into your story. This is a strength that will show up when you allow someone to show up with you. That's why we have small groups. When school's in session and we are meeting in person, we have our small groups for this very reason. We all need a group of people that will help us figure out the right thing to do in complicated situations. That's why we have conversations that we have in our group settings, so that you know you're not alone. So we have these conversations that are important, and they're probably more important than anything. Probably more important than anything I say here on this video or on this stage week after week. Because those conversations are specific to you and your life. As we wrap up tonight, I want you to think about a situation where you need to do the next right thing. Think about exactly what you need to do, but just know you don't have to do this alone. You can tap into the help of God and the help of others. When you don't know what to do, then do the next right thing. Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much for this reminder to do the next right thing, Lord, because we face situations every day. Some are really easy to know what's right, and then there are other times, Lord, when the right answer is just, it's not there. So God, when we're stuck in the situation, let us remember what we talked about tonight. To just do the next right thing and forget about what we may gain or lose by doing the right thing, Lord. Let us live our lives with integrity. We ask these things in your Son's precious name I pray. Amen. That's going to do it for another Digital Sunday Night Thirst. Man, I hope you guys are doing well. Don't forget, Sunday morning worship is happening for the adults. This is like all families included. There's no kids service or teen service or anything like that. So it's an opportunity where you and I, we can see each other face to face, okay? So until we are all together again, peace and love to you guys. Man, I cannot wait to see you soon.